Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Breeze Time with Kathy. I'm glad to be with you here again this week. I've been working my way through this little book. As you know, it's called Too Soon, I've talked about it before, Too Soon Old, Too Late Smart. I really like it. It's by Gordon Livingston, and it was a gift from one of the residents here, so I've really enjoyed it. I've made it to chapter 22, and I'd like to share with you some of the thoughts I have about that. He says, "Love is never lost, not even in death." Boy, does that hit home with me today. You see, my husband, this is the anniversary of my husband's death. He died on February the 24th, 18 years ago. As a matter of fact, I took PAL for Monday. I'm recording this on Sunday, and I took PAL for Monday and Tuesday because, you know what? I don't like to work on that anniversary. At the hospital, I had trouble concentrating, and you know you've got to concentrate all the time, and now it's just gotten into a habit. I take that time for myself because, love is never lost, not even in death. This is a picture of myself and my husband, Chuck. Oh, I don't know, I got a reflection on it. There you go, now you can see it better. This was taken actually a couple of days before our wedding. Yes, he's older than I am by 25 years, but it was not something you could tell when we were together. We were very much in love. I was very blessed. I was about 36 years old, and Chuck was 25 years older than I am. But it didn't matter. When we were together, I never was aware of the age difference. We were blessed. It's what I said then, it's what he said then, and it's what I say now. I love to talk about Chuck and I, to be quite honest with you. Oh, it was a love story for the ages, well, for my ages anyway. Turns out that I was married young, and that marriage fell apart, and it was hard and heartbreaking on both of us, and I was a single parent for a long time. And I dated all the wrong guys. There was a country song out about that time. It was called "Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places." What a mess. But then Chuck and I met. We met through work. Of course, I thought he was too old for me, but that's another story. But we met through work, and after about a year of being good friends, he told me he wanted to date me. And I said, "Oh my goodness, no. I'm very touched," and I think that's one day he said, "No, I really do, really want to. I have come to know you during this past year, and I want however much time I have left to be meaningful, and I can't imagine that life without trying to spend it with you. Because I've come to know who you are inside. It's not anything you did to make me fall in love with you. It was who you are, the person I've come to know." And I said, "Well, I am very touched. I'm so glad what a beautiful offer." I said, "But it's never going to work." I said, "It's just not going to happen. Really isn't. And so thank you very much." And he said, "Well, I have to tell you something. I've tried to forget you. If you noticed, I haven't been hanging around for the last 3 weeks. I've tried to avoid you," I had noticed that, and it was quite a trick because we worked together in the emergency department. He was a police officer providing security for the emergency department, where I was charge nurse, and I was at night, I was the night charge nurse, and we worked the exact same shift. So we were always there. He was always there, but he managed to avoid me. And I'd noticed He'd gone from being a friend and asking me all about my day, and I'd ask him about his and what was going on, and I'd tell him the stories of the guy I dated and the guy I dumped or dumped me, and my problems with Michael, because I didn't realize yet that he was autistic, but I knew something wasn't right, and just all these things. And then for 3 weeks, boom, it was like he was invisible when I was at work. And then all of a sudden, he takes the opportunity, he's back, and he takes the opportunity to, a group of us are going to go listen to some music, and he takes that opportunity to tell me what I've just told you, that he's fallen in love with me. And he wants to start dating. Well, and he said, I figured that felt like you did, that it wasn't going to work. And then I decided that nope, that wasn't going to do. I'd avoided you for 3 weeks, and that just was not going to do. The only way I had to give it my best shot. I'll probably get my feelings hurt, and maybe once I do, I can move on, but that's how much I care about you, so much I love you. What do you say to that, huh? I said, well, that is beautiful, and I will treasure it always. But please know you've given it your best shot. You can move on now. And then he said to me, oh no, I have to give it my very best shot. And I warn you, I am a very patient man. I felt like my life had been threatened. Oh, he started sending me flowers to work from a secret admirer. He started slipping little notes in my locker or in the pocket of my coat when it hung in the cloakroom, in the locker room. I mean, if he could get me alone, if I was going to bring a patient upstairs, and when I was coming back with the empty stretcher, he'd be right there to help me with that empty stretcher. And I knew it was because he wanted to get me alone and talk to me and try to talk me into going out with him. And finally, it was just I just couldn't handle it. I said, look, you've got to stop this at work, because I'm thinking, this poor man. I mean, people are going to figure it out, and he's going to feel foolish. They're going to make fun of him. We're going to ruin this friendship we have. This has got disaster written all over it. He's got to stop. And I couldn't think what else to do, so I finally said, if you will stop all this stuff at work, I will go out on 3 dates with you. Okay? Just 3. All right. So he agreed. Well, I was getting ready for our first date. It was going to be lunch. Lunch is safe after all. Nothing too romantic is likely to happen at a lunch date, right? So that's what I wanted first, was a lunch date. Well, it turns out that I had a wonderful African-American housekeeper when I was a child. She took care of us from probably the time I was in 1st or 2nd grade, and she stayed a part of our lives forever, for the rest of her life. And even when I was an adult, I would have her come once a week just to help clean up a little bit, because she was retired now and I knew she needed the money, and I wanted to see her. And she wouldn't accept charity. And so I'd clean up the house just a little bit before Nancy came, but not too much. Many of you probably heard this story because it is so amazing. So Nancy was there that day. Usually our routine was she'd come, we've had breakfast together, we'd talk, we'd watch a soap opera together, and then I'd leave and she'd do the washing and the iron and pass the vacuum cleaner. And that was pretty much what she'd take a nap in the afternoon, so I had to be gone because I knew she did not want me to know she took a nap. I did not mind that she took a nap. But I knew she didn't want me to know she took a nap, so I always left, by about lunchtime, so that she could take care of everything. Well, that particular day I told her, I'm going to go out for lunch. Somebody's coming to pick me up. I'm going to go get ready. If they get here before I come out, just go ahead and let them in. Well, I'm in my room getting ready, and I will never forget what happened next. I'm thinking what a disaster this is going to be. I am going to hurt that man's feelings. I so vividly remember standing in my bedroom in front of my mirror, combing my hair, woom, 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 going, this is a disaster. Nothing good can come of this. What are you doing? Are you insane to date this man? You know you're just going to hurt his feelings, and you're going to hurt this very good person. Ugh. I heard the doorbell ring. Oh no, groan. I procrastinated for about 5 more minutes, and then I came out. Well, as I was coming out my bedroom, here's Nancy coming down the hall. And the first thing, she pointed at me, and then she went like that. And that means, turn around, miss. And I knew I was in trouble. I felt like all of a sudden I was 8 years old again and being sent back to my room for a good tongue lashing. Because Nancy never laid a hand on me. But I sure didn't want Nancy fussing at me. And I had no idea what's going on. So we get in there, Nancy closes the door. Now, Nancy was a very devout Christian. She was a deaconess in the Oakville Missionary Baptist Church. And to tell you the truth, though I didn't realize it because I think I've told you before, my faith was not very strong when I was young. But it did get bad, that changed after I married Chuck, but that's another story. But the whole point was, Nancy was always someone who I knew. If I used to even say back then, if I've ever known a person who had faith that could move mountains, it was Nancy McGinnis. Well, Nancy tells me, she looks at me right in the eye, and she said, Kathy, I have been praying for God to send you a good man. And I've looked into this man's eyes. And I know that this is the man that God sent you in answer to my prayers. So, your mother's going to say he's too old for you, but don't you let that stop you. I know that this man will love you and take care of you until the day he dies. I thought, Nancy's lost her mind. That's what I thought. That was my first reaction. Does she have dementia or something? What is this? But what else am I going to do? I listened. And I said, okay. Yes, ma'am. What else was I going to say? And I'm thinking, Nancy has lost it. She'd only spent 5 minutes with Chuck. And she'd already decided this? Holy moly. Well, I went out with Chuck, and we had a nice lunch. And I went out with him again, and we had another nice lunch. And 6 weeks later, I realized that this man who had been become one of my dearest friends was now a man I was in love with. And even though I panicked there, and when I realized that I was falling in love with him, then I'm the one who panicked. And I'm the one who said, oh no, this can't happen. Because you know what's going to happen. He's 25 years older than you. Kathy, what are the odds? The odds are he's going to die and you're going to grow old alone. And then a thought popped in my head, and what happens if you don't marry him? He's going to die and grow old alone? He's going to get sick and die and grow old alone? Oh, no, 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 no. I'm not going to let that happen. And I realized I was too far gone. I was in love with that man. I was in love with him. True story. We waited about 6 months before we got married, but there was no sense in waiting very long. We were both so sure. And I had always been going to church sort of half-heartedly because I didn't, unless I could find a really good excuse not to. So Chuck came to church with me because that's what I did. But both of us had been adrift spiritually. But you know what? Little by little, God brought us closer to Him. And the closer we got to God, the closer we got to each other. Chuck wasn't getting anything out of coming to my church with me, so we started back in addition to going to my church on Friday evenings for the vigil service and taking my mother to Mass. On Sunday mornings, I'd get up and we'd go to the little Methodist church, and that's where my faith caught on fire. And I told you about that. It wasn't long before I had a call to ministry. And I started pursuing that call very reluctantly, but I did eventually do that. And I can remember one day how blessed Chuck and I just was thinking about it, and I was praying. I had decided that God wanted. I had felt my call to ministry, and after a little kicking and screaming and wiggling on the hook, as my pastor said at the time, I said, okay, I'll head off in that direction. And the more I embraced opportunities for ministry, the more convinced I was that that's what God wanted me to do. And the closer I got to God, the closer Chuck and I became. I remember the pastor used to put up little scriptures on the board, out front, the sign, how churches do that. And one time he put up John 10:10. I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. And I said, oh yes, that's what's happened to me. My life has gotten so good since God brought Chuck and I together and brought us both closer to Him. And it had gotten so good. And I remember in a Bible study, I was asked what was a while afterwards, I was asked what my favorite scripture was. It happened to be in October. And I had told them that it was our wedding anniversary, October the 10th. And when they asked what everybody's favorite scripture was, I said, oh, mine's John 10:10. I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. And because that's what God's done for me. And someone said, oh, look at that, Kathy. John 10:10 is your favorite scripture, and 10:10 is your anniversary. What a coincidence. And then another friend of mine, Carol, chimed in, oh, that's no coincidence, Kathy, that's just God being anonymous. And we all laughed. We had 10 wonderful years together. And Chuck supported me on my way through seminary during the last 3.5 years of our marriage. And almost 4 years of our marriage, the last 4 years of our marriage almost. But he developed lung cancer, and 4 months after he developed lung cancer, he was gone. He died at home on hospice care. And I remember it as clear as if it was yesterday. I was there at his bedside. We had his bed in a big den we had with lots of French doors. It was in New Orleans, it's usually warm this time of year, and that year it was warm. I had the doors open, and I could hear the birds singing, and the sun was shining. It was a Monday. And I saw that he was about to go. And I leaned down and I whispered in his ear, If God's calling you, then you go. I said, take my love to heaven with you. And some of your love will stay here with me. And you'll be with God, with Jesus, with the Lord, and the Lord will be with me. And we'll be all right. I love you. And he stopped breathing. The clock was right there behind his head. I could see it. It was 12 o'clock, noon. But I could see the pulse in his neck. Though his breathing had stopped, his pulse hadn't stopped yet. I mean, he was on hospice care. Cancer had eaten him up. He told me about a couple of weeks before that, he said, my body's so eaten up with cancer. Baby, I'll never do you any more good here on earth. But I promise I'll always love you. And I'll always be with you. And I'll be in heaven praying for you. And I saw his heart beating. So I went ahead. I wanted him to know he wasn't alone. I know that hearing is the last thing to go. So I sang his favorite hymn, Amazing Grace. My son Michael came. My brother Bill, who was there with me, came. And we all stood there. We sang. And at 12:05, that pulse faded away completely. And the love of my life was absent from the body and present with the Lord. The days that followed, of course, I was grief-stricken. Anybody would be. Grief is something y'all have dealt with. I'm sure everyone watching this has dealt with grief. We all have. It's something that never goes away. We just learn to handle it a little bit better. And somehow try to find a little balance back in our lives again. I have to admit, though, one thing that was different. When my first marriage broke up, I felt abandoned. I felt alone. I felt isolated. And I was devastated. Eventually, I got better. When Chuck died, I felt devastated. I felt grief-stricken. I felt heartbroken. But I missed him like all get out. But you know what? I used to miss him when he was gone on a trip. When I'd have to go to seminary for 2 weeks worth of classes. And we couldn't be together. I'd miss him then. And I missed him after he died. But you know what? I never felt abandoned. And I really think that's because love never dies. You know, everybody's heard this scripture. Paul, I could tell you that love never dies. That was my experience. I still feel that connected to Chuck, even though he's gone. But nobody ever said it any more beautifully than Paul did in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. I know I don't usually read scripture in this time, but it fits right now. If I speak with the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, And if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. And this is something I experienced with Chuck. That love was patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. Love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but love rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For now we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. After all, when Jesus Christ returns and this whole world is redeemed and we stand in glory, we won't need all those things, prophecies and such. The partial, those things that just gave us a glimpse of hope and a glimpse of faith, they won't be necessary. Paul writes, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to my childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I only know in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three things. And the greatest of these is love. Friends, I sincerely believe that love never dies. Just like it says here, just like I've experienced, that love lasts forever. I hope there's been some time in your life where you've experienced a love. Could have been parents, could have been a family member, could have been someone you cared about, whatever, wherever that happened. I hope it happened for you. And I hope you know that that love still exists and is real. I believe it is. And I believe that when this life is over, we'll rejoice not only in the presence of God, but to be once again reconnected to all those we love. Until next time, God bless you.